Probably we should get started. Probably people are not awakened yet, but they're gonna slowly coming in. Anyway, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome again to ISIS Thailand Public Forum. We just had, another forum on this Wednesday, but this time particularly on Japan's politics, right? We entitled Analyses of Japan's domestic politics implication for Indo-Pacific regions. So before we start the conversations, let me introduce our guest speakers this time. First, Dr. Kitty Prasad, Professor of International Relations at the Faculty of Political Science, Thammasat University. He's one of the experts on Japan's politics and foreign affairs in Thailand. The second one is the gentleman, Dr. Chen Shui Quick, Professor of International Relations at the Institute of Malaysian and International Study, IKIMAS, National University of Malaysia, sorry, that's an old name. Okay, and a Japan Foundation Fellow. He's now visiting a fellow at Kyoto University and Southeast Asian study centers. Next to me, Dr. Saya Kiba, Associate Professor at Kobe City University of Foreign Studies. Her major research are Southeast Asian studies, civil military relations, security, sector governance, and defense cooperations. Very suitable for this time discussion. And the last one, my colleagues, Dr. Tiwin Suputikun, so Assistant Professor and Head of the IR Department here at the Political Science Department of Faculties, Chulalongkorn University. So Dr. Tiwin is also an expert on Japan's politics and foreign policy and security policy in the region. So today we are lucky to have all of them here. As you know, all the diverse expertise, my sincere appreciation, especially to Professor Quick and Professor Kiba for stopping by Bangkok to join us, en route to either back home or, to their research trip afterwards. So we are lucky to have your support to ISIS Thailand. So as usual, we will have 3 rounds of conversations. So first round, each panelist will have around 10 minutes each or 15, depends on your preparations, to give a remark, introduction. The second round would be follow up for 5 to 8 minutes before we open the floor for discussions and Q&A. That's the format. So, let's start, right? So Japan just had a snap election on the same day as, it has in Thailand. Last Sunday, surprisingly, everyone may know that the election result is the largest supermajority achieved in the post-war history in Japan, so which is the biggest mandate handed to Prime Minister Takaichi in a single election. So in this this is greater than Shinzo Abe after he reinstalled the LDP in 2012 elections. So it means he can control the House of Representatives and override the upper house of the councillor. So could this be the first step toward a shake-up in Japanese politics with the power of reshaping the future of Asia-Pacific and Indo-Pacific? But first, let me perhaps throw the first questions and round to Dr. Kiba to give us an understanding why Prime Minister Takaichi gained such a strong support among Japanese voters. What are the key determinants of her success this time? Her personalities, economic or social issues, or it's about security issues that Japan engaged with neighboring countries, especially China. Perhaps if you have time to elaborate on her campaign on the controversial issues of constitutional amendment. Are we going to see the change of public consensus against the amendment in the future in Japan's politics? Please, Dr. Kiba.
Good morning. Thank you very much to host the event just after the election. It was very timely, and I'm more interested in the Thai politics. So I look forward to listening to you after that.
Let's come back.
Good. Thank you so much. So I'm a political scientist, and I'd like to discuss the point that was mentioned by Dr. Paul. Here, so this is the result, right? So the LDP, the Liberal Democrat Party, won landslide, and the opposition party It's a new party. It's a new coalition called Centrist Reform Alliance, which is a combination of the constitutional Democrat and the Komeito Party, which is a religion-based party. So anyway, and then also the JIP, the Ishin Party, joined the coalition, the ruling coalition. So it will be like almost 2/3 of the lower house. So that's a historical victory of the LDP and the ruling coalition. So the upper one is before the election. So you see how big the gain of the LDP after this all of a sudden snap election. Okay? So the reason of the Takaichi victory is that it was more on the Prime Minister Takaichi's personality versus this centrist coalition. Okay? So she enjoys the popularity. She's the first female one, and she's not from Tokyo. She's from Nara Prefecture, which is middle of nowhere. I'm sorry for the Nara people.
Capital.
Used to be capital, but now there are a lot of deers. And she's not from the dynasty, okay? And she's from the Kobe University. And she's my alumni. And so she had weak support among the LDP. She's just very popular among the public. But after this landslide victory, now she has a solid base, even within the LDP, and everybody should respect her within the party. So it's very, very strong, I guess. And however, the problem is that after her inauguration in October, she has never experienced a very intense parliamentary debate, because on the opening day of the new parliament in January, all of a sudden she dissolved the parliament. So it means that we do not know her debating skill yet. Okay? And many people say that the liberal, the opposition party, which was led by the constitutional Democrat, died, because you see, the centric party, the centrists just get 49. But I don't think so, because it's a matter of the electoral system, because we are political scientists. No, the electoral system is very tricky. So we have a single seat constituency system in Japan. It means that it's very difficult for the opposition party, the second opposition party, to win the seat. And if you see I can share the slide if you like. I'd like to quote the tweet from Professor Sugawara of Tokyo University. He's a polymetrics expert, and this is widely shared among the Japanese liberal people. So this is the tweet, and it says that in single seat constituency, actually the centrist, the liberal got 21%. So it's just a problem of the coordination of the candidates in the single seat constituency. They need more time to coordinate with all the constituents in all over Japan. But as it was a snap election and they only had 1 week, it was very difficult for the opposition party to unite and coordinate with the candidacy of the single seats. And this is the proportion of the proportional representation, which is similar to the party list system here, but it's very different. So if you just see the proportional representation, the centrists did good. They gained 20%, but it's just for the representation. So it's more on the matter of the electoral system. In Japan, the opposition party is difficult to win and win the seats. So anyway, so the liberals are still there. And so what were the issues? What was the background? So the highest problem is the economy, inflation, consumer tax problem, if we increase the tax or not, and then very weak Japanese yen. So it's time to travel to Japan. But for us, it's very unfortunate. Thai baht is getting expensive. Diplomacy, well, there's no major objection against the U.S.-Japan security alliance, even under the Trump 2.0. We have no plan B because we only have the alliance with the U.S. And there's no objection on the free and open Indo-Pacific and also the like-minded countries diplomacy, global South diplomacy, that's fine. Migration policy or the immigration policies, that's a big debate because the LDP and some other rightist parties such as the Conservatives and San Saito Party, they are gaining support from the growing anti-foreignism kind of thing. We can discuss later. Okay, let's go to the manifest. Okay, so this is the manifest of the LDP and Takaichi's party. She has a lot of manifest on economy, on economics and security. On security, this is the diplomacy and security, diplomacy, foreign policies and security. So what was the essence? So you can download this one from the LDP website. Okay, and then this is another one. So the constitutional amendment is number 5. Foreign policy security is number 3. So constitutional amendment is surely one of the manifest, and she will go on. We are not sure what's her timeline. Okay, so the foreign and security policies, she mentioned again and again the free and open Indo-Pacific. And she also promised the revision of 3 documents, including the national security strategy within this year and defense capacity build-up. So including the standoff capability, air defense system, and multi-domain capability of the self-defense forces. And she also mentioned the ODA, Official Security Assistance, OSA, which is the new scheme for the arms, for their defense equipment, and arms export. So she promised to review the 5 category, so-called 5 category. And the background is that we couldn't provide equipment to Ukraine and also in Djibouti when we were in piracy mission, anti-piracy mission in Djibouti. So that's the background, and then she really wants to review those policies and of course the constitutional amendment. So this is the Abe's diagram. So when Prime Minister Abe made a speech in Shangri-La Dialogue in 2014, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs used this diagram, combining official development assistance, which is very classic, defense equipment and technology cooperation, and capacity building program. Now we add the OSA, the official security assistance, to make it more security oriented and more strategic. Okay? And this is the 5 category rule. So even though we allow the arms export, we still have a lot of conditions. So 5 category includes rescue, transport, vigilance, surveillance, and mine sweeping. Okay? So no lethal weapons. We cannot export the lethal weapons such as tanks or guns. So and then Takaichi administration, one of her policy, one of the manifest is to amend this category to relax the condition of the arms export. Okay? The defense budget increase. All the NATO allies and then the U.S. allies, we are asked to increase the budget from now it's 2% of the GDP to 5%, but Takaichi said no request from U.S. directly. So we have not yet discussed, how to do it, but the 2% of GDP already achieved. So if you review the recent history, the Prime Minister Kishida promised in 2022, just after the Russian invasion to Ukraine, he said that from 1% to 2% of GDP. So he finally amended the threshold, and he said that Ukraine today is East Asia tomorrow in the Shangri-La Dialogue. And it was achieved already. He said within 5 years, but as of the end of last year, that is already included in the budget. So that was 2% was actually achieved ahead of time. So for what? For what? The defense budget increase, of course, the equipment, including the standoff capability and air defense capability, and then also the welfare and well-being program of the self-defense forces, because we are severely suffering from the recruitment of the self-defense force personnel. Because of the demographic decline. Nobody would like to apply for the self-defense forces. And Prime Minister Ishiba established an interagency working group to improve the well-being, to improve all the facilities of the self-defense forces. So probably some budget goes to that kind of human capital and personal development. And well, if you say that the defense budget, it is not purely for the defense. It can be also used for the security-related projects, such as infrastructure or the cyber defense, which can be a dual use. And of course, the OSA is also included. So those are the things we will see, how the defense budget will be used, and then if we increase more or not after the remarks of the Peter Hexes. So I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, so one of the issues that Dr. Kiba was mentioning about the U.S.-Japan relations, right? Next month, the Prime Minister will make the U.S. her first visit, in March. Under new premiership. So where she said that she will reaffirm unshakable unity between the two allies and open a new chapter in the history of Japan-U.S. alliance. So earlier, Donald Trump also in his social, through social, that I wish, quote unquote, I wish you great success in passing your conservative peace through strength agenda. The wonderful people of Japan who voted with such enthusiasm will always have my strong support, right? And the U.S. Treasurer, Scott Bessent, also said, when Japan is strong, the U.S. is strong in Asia. So, Professor Kitty, what does the Prime Minister's landslide victory means for this bilateral alliance, considering the recent U.S. national defense strategy released early this year and the national security strategies last year? What can we say about the trend in Japan's foreign policy and relations toward the United States that will take upon in her premiership in the next 4 years?
Thank you, Paul. Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here discussing with you about Japan politics and implication for the Indo-Pacific. I think the news on Japan elections did not top the agenda in Thailand at all. Not only because we have election at the same day, but Japan seemed to slip away from the radar screen of Thailand in many ways. For example, T-Win and I rarely are invited to speak on TV anymore. Unlike last decade, 2010, when disaster hit Japan or something like that. It's just a scoop. Of course, many TV channels report a scoop on Japan election, landslide, victory, and so on. But I'm afraid Japan does not gain much attention in Thailand nowadays. Very unfortunate for me and T-Win as well. Before I answer Paul on how this election would affect the bilateral relations, U.S.-Japan relations, I would like to comment a little bit on Saya account on the elections. You mentioned that the centrist party did not have enough time to coordinate, to filling the candidates in which district, not to compete with each other. But in Thailand, they're very skillful. Conservative in Thailand, very skillful in managing the candidate, not to overlap, not to compete for the same conservative votes. So they get a big win. Okay. Anyhow, so for U.S.-Japan relation, I would talk in three aspects. First, on how we have seen the relationship between Trump and Takaichi, or U.S. and Japan at this point. And secondly, like Paul said, on the American National Security Strategy, NSS, and the National Defense Strategy, just released recently, both of them, just 2 months ago. We would consider that NSS and NDS, and then the third part of my talk would be how that would unfold in the foreseeable future, how Japan and the U.S. will work together in advancing security in their perspective in the regions. So first, I think if you saw the news when Trump visited Japan in October, you would see a kind of affinity between Trump and Takaichi. So much he hold her hand all the time, hug several times, in the posture that he never showed with Angela Merkel, for example. So it seems that the relationship between U.S. and Japan is doing very well at this point. Uh, Partially, I think because Takaichi is a kind of Abe protege. She followed the hard line of Abe foreign policy. And that's why Trump declared the new golden age of US-Japan relations. But I cannot recall what is the dark age, what is the golden age of US-Japan relations. I still have no clear idea. What does it mean? And Takaichi would be visiting the United States in a month from now. So the relationship should be cemented even more. And another point of Trump visit, he emphasized a lot on inbound investment, 550 billion investment as an exchange for the 15% tariff rate. So, and Japan is likely to invest in like semiconductor, energy, and other manufacturing industry in the US. This, in fact, is in line with the national security strategy of the US, that they would like to enhance manufacturing bases in the United States to beef up US economy. And also Trump seemed to foresee that if they have to confront China so long, US need to have the self-sufficient in many ways, not only food, but many manufacturing products and other things. And it seemed to me that not only about Trump, but in Japan, in the US, there seemed to be bipartisanship for Japan to enhance defense. I don't think if for example, the next government Democrat came, the Democrat will also induce or push Japan to enhance more defense, to increase budget. I think it's the direction that is clear. That I think we have seen bipartisanship in the United States because they are against China. So the second part on the national security strategy and national defense strategy, I think first, US emphasize the hemisphere priority, the Western hemisphere priority in North America, South America, Greenland, or even Canada, Venezuela, and so on, that you have witnessed from the news. So by focusing on Western hemisphere, that means on the flip side, China might think that, oh, okay, then I will also emphasize Eastern hemisphere. So that can be the kind of a contestation in that as well. And I think Japan also is fully aware about that. And secondly, on the NSS, burden sharing in terms of defense alliance. That's very clear when Trump went to NATO and pressure NATO to increase the defense budget. So 5% seems to be the explicit number that he want to push for. And as Kiba has just shown, the Pete Hegseth also came to Japan to say about 5%, right? So Trump subscribed to the idea of conditional partnership, unless you invest more in your defense resources, budget, equipment, and so on, personnel, America would hold back, maybe in terms of commitment in the collective defense. And third, regional handoffs. I think regional handoff in East Asia and in Europe as well. Trump seemed to delegate the defense of responsibility more in Europe to NATO, and in Asia, I suspect that pressure or that burden would be put more on Japan, Korea, Australia. That likely to be the case. So all of these point to the direction that Japan need to beef up their defense capability more and more. For the national defense strategy, it talk about fortress homeland, the Golden Dome. The Golden Dome seems to be popular nowadays to anti-missile, like Israel successfully defended itself from Iran missile, and Trump also emphasized about this, the Golden Dome. So the NDS is more execution plan, it's more in detail. If you see the NSS as a vision, but the National Defense Plan is more specific. And number two, on Indo-Pacific, the NDS, according to the NDS, they stated about deterrence by denial. That is to fortifying the first island chain in the Japan, South Korea, the Philippines, by enhancing the capability of air bases, missiles, anti-missile system. And on Taiwan, the SNSS and NDS seem to step down from the Biden era to return to the strategic ambiguity that U.S. did not say clearly that they would fully committed to defend Taiwan, unlike Biden. One time he spoke in Japan about that he would help to protect Taiwan. And third, on the NDS is on industrial basis as well, as a way to increase the domestic capability of the United States for the long confrontation with the threat like China. And the third part of my talk, first I start with Taiwan, how U.S.-Japan relation is likely to evolve in this area. It seemed to me that rather than strategic ambiguity, what Takaichi has said in the past 2 months or so is more strategic clarity that Japan would help to defend Taiwan. And that go beyond what Trump said, what the national security strategy or national defense strategy mentioned, right? And that, I think, is very good for Trump. I think Trump is happy about that. He is happy that he can play the role of mediator between China and Japan. I recall that he called Takaichi to step down a little bit, to calm down a bit, something like that. So he acts as if he's like a peacemaker again between Japan and China. And in fact, because Trump, after he met Xi Jinping this time, the atmosphere is like this. He wants to be a little bit friendly to Xi Jinping in the détente, a little bit temporary détente manner. He planned to visit China this year, right? And then at the end of year, in April, right? Very soon. And at the end of year, it's gonna be APEC in Shenzhen. He is coming again. So this time they will meet a few times. And so it seemed to be that in this Taiwan case, I think all of us know about good cop, bad cop model, the two hard line, two soft line. It seems to be opposite. Now, Trump can be a good cop, while Takaichi is bad cop, is hardliner. Very interesting. I think this point we should notice in the next coming months. But that also depends on Japan, how Japan under Takaichi will adapt itself in terms of pragmatic China policy, because they have huge interest in China, investment, trade, and so on. The tension cannot go on that long. The punishment on tourism, on seafoods, export from Japan, and so on. I think they will try to find a way to amend. Probably Trump will bring that to talk to Xi Jinping as well in April. I just suspect. If that happens, it's good. It's good for China-Japan relations. In any case, Japan is a part of contingency plan on Taiwan become very clear and very much in line with the regional handoffs hemisphere, Western Hemisphere priority of the United States. Japan is likely to play a more important role in the Taiwan contingency if that happens. And that might go further into the thing like nuclear power submarines. Nuclear power submarines. I think Japan has been very allergic to nuclear, but I think this point we should keep a closer look because this is also contingent on Trump North Korea policy. So far, Trump does not say much about North Korea. He has been preoccupied with Ukraine, Israel, tariff, and so on. But once he moves on North Korea, it would be very interesting. Whether he would accept North Korea as a nuclear state, that is the key. I think if he does, that means South Korea would be more inclined to develop nuclear capability, and so will Japan. So that would be the unfolding in that way. And in any case, Japan would promote more defense cooperation with Southeast Asia. I think you hear more from Cheng Shui. OSA, Official Security Assistant, would be increased, especially in maritime domain. In fact, even with Thailand, Japan has also discussed about this in 2022. Even earlier than that, but Thailand still reluctant not to agitate China and so on. But in 2022, Prime Minister Prayut agreed to sign defense cooperation with Japan. I think why? I think the real reason behind Thai intention is Thailand would like to develop defense industry to increase the military for the budget for military and so on. And then Prayut and Thailand would see that Japan could contribute on defense technological development. But Thailand is not that eager to receive equipment like Coast Guard, use Coast Guard even. But in fact, I think it's good for Thailand, but somehow they seem reluctant. But I think it would be more positive acceptance shortly. Okay. Myself, in fact, until recently, I tend to advocate better relationship between Japan and China because Trump just go extreme in tariff, agitating alliance in many ways. But I cannot say that anymore. Cannot say that much, but I still hope that Japan and China can amend their relations. Because with Trump go unilateral like this, it's very important for Japan and China to work together in East Asia. But now the situation is not the case. I hope it would be amended not too long. And we might suspect, we might have a question, why Japanese public seem to pro Takaichi so much, even though she came like a hardliner, like a hawkish toward China. I think Japanese public has been fed up by Chinese assertiveness or high pressure strategy in the South China Sea. And in any country, if they agitate China will punish. Like in the case of Japan, in tourism, seafood export, and in the case of Korea, when Korea agreed with the US to station the THAAD anti-missile system, Korea was also punished by tourism ban, something like that. And Lotte department store in China also was under siege, under protest, something like that. And for Thailand as well, Thailand was also punished by China. During our Belt and Road negotiation on high-speed train to the northeast, that was during 2016, 2017, under military government. Although during that time, Thailand had very good relation with China, close with China, but still, we needed 18 rounds to negotiate with China in terms of high-speed train, and not successful 18 rounds because China tend to propose very high tariff rate, interest rate, and also require so many things. Very tough conditions. Same condition as Laos, even though Thailand has much more financial stability, the interest rate should be lower than that of Laos, for example. China has been very tough. And after 18 round, we cannot agree. So China punished Thailand when they organized the Belt and Road Summit 2017. They did not invite Thailand. They invited everyone except Thailand from Southeast Asia. Shame opposite. Right. And after that, Thai government needed to accelerate the process, right? And we finally agree in the 19th round. We finally agree to build the high-speed train for 3.5 kilometer. 3.5 kilometer only, first phase. And to Korat, but 3.5 very short distance. And then Prayut was invited to the BRIC summit a few months later in Xiamen without any ground. In 2017, Thailand was not ASEAN chair. Thailand was not the next chair of ASEAN. Invited for reward. So that tend to be the case of China behavior, punishment and reward. High pressure strategy, wolf warrior strategy. I think Japanese public have been fed up with that. Correct me if I'm wrong. And US-Japan relations seem to play a role in line of peace through strength. Peace through strength. I think Takaichi also accepted that idea. So burden sharing, she also agreed, but there also no plan B for Japan as well. Japan has no choice as well. So increase to 2% already. This is a kind of preemptive action to the US. we just increase before you even ask. So Japan now has moved from integrated deterrent to a more assertive, military-led deterrence posture. More assertive, military-led deterrent posture. So I think the future in this region is that we will see more minilateralism, more stronger minilateralism like US, Japan, and the Philippines. However, I still consult a book by Peter Katzenstein on the pacifist norm in Japan that has been very entrenched in Japan. Although the ratio may be slightly dropped, but I still think that in Japan, this kind of sentiment remain very strong as well. So that can be a kind of restraint of Takaichi defense policy not to go that extreme. And another thing that we need to look at is how Japan works with other major powers, Western power, so to speak, the European Union, Canada, Australia, Korea. But Korea can be the same, US, Korea, Japan as a set. But for EU, Canada, and also ASEAN can be a good leeway for Japan a bit, to provide more alternative for Japan a bit. And Japan, in fact, has been developing the new generation jet fighter, stealth jet fighter with Italy and Britain, not with America, but these three countries. So I think it's quite interesting as well how Takaichi would come out in collaboration with other major powers, not only the United States. Okay, so I end my talk here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You were talking about the wolf warrior diplomacy of the Chinese, and then with the Taiwanese issues that happening 3 or 4 months ago, then we would turn to specifically to Northeast Asian sub-regions. So we see Taiwanese President Lai Ching-te congratulated Takaichi's victory, saying that he looks forward to cooperating with her to ensure that Taiwan and Japan continue to address regional challenges together, thereby promoting peace and prosperity Indo-Pacific region. So congratulations from Xi Jinping, of course, was absent, considering Beijing's waging a 3-month campaign against Takaichi's comments on Chinese blockades of Taiwan, constitute the survival threatening Japanese situations, or security situations. So certainly Beijing is not welcoming at certain point, her victories as much as other countries. So Dr. Tiwin, I'll return to your, picking your brain. What can we say about Japan's relations with the countries in Northeast Asia, especially China, after Takaichi's landslide victories this time? And of course, if you have time to go over to, Professor Kitty was mentioning about Korea, right? I mean, we saw Takaichi's mentioning about visiting, the shrine, Yasukuni Shrine last time, but of course, no one knows if she's going to do that. That would affect both, Japan and Korea and China. And then, the cozy relationship that she just cultivated with the Korean president recently, will she actually pursue that kind of more hardline and hawkish kind of like a symbolism in Japanese positions in this region?
Okay, thank you, Professor Pongpisut. And thank you, ISIS, for including me in this great and very timely panel to talk about Japan's recent election and also Japan's roles in the region. As Professor Kitty said, that we do not have many seminars about Japan's election, not yet at this time, because maybe the interest of Thai people is now turned into Thai politics, which is not that peaceful. I think it's very chaotic right now. Okay, in my section of the talk, I would like to share my view by focusing on the strategic aspect of Japan's security in the region, particularly as Professor Pongpisut has assigned me the relations with China and also the China-Taiwan issue. Looking at the recent general election in Japan, we may say that the primary concern, as Professor Kiba has told us, the primary concern of Japanese public revolved around the economic issue, high living expense, and the management of the high inflation. But in the background, we can say that the national security loomed large after Taiwan issue flared up late last year due to Prime Minister Takaichi's remark in the parliament about hypothetical Taiwan crisis and Japan's possible response by using armed force. Since then, not only that the coercive diplomacy used by China did not make Japanese people question or blame Takaichi for the trouble, but also give her the chance to prove her resolve and determination to stand up to China and to signal Japan's firm commitment to Taiwan. This arguably resulted in the rise in Takaichi's popularity that she retained from last year until this election. And this popularity has given her enormous mandate from the people, turning the LDP situation as the minority government to the powerful force in the parliament right now, as it gains seats more than super majority threshold. And this will facilitate her right-wing agendas, including perhaps new security and defense postures in the region, or even the revision of the post-war constitution. Arguably, the coercive measures used by China has backfired in this election. I agree with Professor Kitty's observation about this. What China tried to do after the problematic Taiwan remark was to use cognitive warfare aimed at two levels. It aimed to influence the Japanese public by suggesting that all these adverse or bad consequences in Japan-China relations, the economic sanctions, the tensions in the relation were the fault of Takaichi's outspokenness, as well as her hawkish stance in security policy. The idea was to use public opinion in Japan to pressure the government, which is especially vulnerable in a democratic regime. But from the opinion polls and reactions to China escalating coercion and reactions, the government seemed to gain public approval by not backing down on Chinese demand and pressure. This reflects the public opinion in Japan regarding China-Taiwan issue, as well as the country's security posture. China also used public opinion warfare to affect international community's perception toward Japan by conflating Takaichi's remark about military intervention in Taiwan crisis with rising militarism in Japan. China tried to convince international community that Japan has stopped being a pacifist nation and become a militarized nation, fully militarized country that can threaten peace and the region, the way it had done in the past before World War II. But judging from the congratulatory messages Takaichi received and enjoyed from leaders around the world after her landslide election victory, I think we can arguably say that at the international front, China's tactic did not work well as expected. Only China's allies like Russia or maybe North Korea seem to dance to this tune played by China. But for the democratic allies, they seem to understand Japan's stance and the reason why there was such a remark in the first place. Instead of taking Takaichi's remark in the parliament as an unprecedented shift in Japan's security policy, in my opinion, I think it's just another revelation of the continual attempts by Japan since the Abe administration to ensure and guarantee status quo and order in areas around Japan and in Indo-Pacific region. As China has been more assertive in claiming the zone within the first island chain and even further to the second island chain last year, to be more frank and clear on the Japanese side about Japan's security purpose, or what Professor Gitti said, strategic clarity, is important to signal to China the red line Japan wants to protect. This then has the deterrent effect that can discourage China's intention to use force across the Taiwan Strait. By making clear that the use of force in the strait close to Japan's southwesternmost islands or the Nansei Shoto can be regarded as Sonritsu Kikichitai or survival threatening situation. The government can exercise the right of collective self-defense as stipulated by Japan's security law of 2015 during the Abe administration. This has the effect of warning against China's use of force to change the status quo in the region. Rather than seeing this as a provocative or offensive action, the aim was to send a clear message and demonstrate Japan's commitment to protect the status quo. By stressing that the Japanese government did not intend to change its policy or to say that it still adheres to the One China principle or One China policy and retain only unofficial ties with Taiwan, Japan tries to reassure China about its priority in maintaining status quo and peace, rather than pushing Taiwan toward formal independence. As long as China does not attempt to change the status quo by force, Japan does not see any need to use force either. This logic of deterrence and the display of clear commitment and determination is more important for the regional status quo, especially when the US under the Trump administration is sending even more ambiguous and confusing messages about its view to serve as a deterrent force or a guardian to protect its allies in the region. So we can partly assume that by winning the election, Japan continued on this course to defend or to ensure the status quo in the region with the mandate of Japanese people and also the understanding of the public. The way Takaichi is not backing down on Chinese pressure has significant implications to Japan's deterrent strategy and the maintenance of peace and status quo order in the region. Firstly, this will serve as another case study that China's coercive diplomacy and economic statecraft do not always work with other countries or with its adversaries, and even backfire like we see in this recent election in Japan. Um, this may give a lesson to China and discourage it from using this tactic or this policy to pressure other countries in the long run, or only use it with caution by providing more room for negotiation to ease the tension or to mend the tie as quickly as possible, not like China is doing right now. Also, by maintaining the intention and promise to help defend Taiwan, uh, Japan makes the strategy of extended deterrence more effective and emphasize the fact that Taiwan is not alone to face China's military attack. Japan asserts itself as part of the like-minded countries in the region and also as part of international community to stand firm against China and also to stand firm to send the message to Taiwanese people that it will stand shoulder to shoulder with Taiwanese democracy. Even when the big brother, like the US, is reluctant to do so right now. That would have the deterrent effect and help maintain the status quo order, which not only serve Japan's own security and self-interest, but also to maintain the peace and stability in this region. So thank you. That's for my remark about issue of China and Taiwan and also Japan's position. But I would like to say something about Yasukuni Trai thing that Professor Paul just mentioned just now. I hope that she will, the Prime Minister of Japan will try to moderate her rightist agendas. And I think late last year, we saw this kind of good signal that she tried to not to assert her far-right issues in foreign policies, and she tried to use diplomatic moderate stance to approach even Xi Jinping when she first met with him at the APEC summit, right? And also the way that she can get along well with South Korean President Lee Jae-myung. I think that's proof a lot that she tried to not to invoke the historical problem, and maybe as a Prime Minister of Japan, she can now reduce or water down her extreme right agenda that she held before taking office. And I hope that this will continue even though she gained majority seat in the parliament.
Thank you very much. And then that might look at the Chinese response as well, because they're going to host APEC summit, right? And they might have to moderate that kind of a hardline stance against Japan in order to save face when to be able to successfully organize the summit toward the end of this year. So, but then last speaker, but not least, Timin was mentioned about the status quo that Japan wants to maintain around like Taiwan Strait, or the contiguous zone toward between Japan and Taiwan. But also, Japan share interest in Southeast Asia, right? Especially maintaining status quo in maritime area, the security and secure sea lane, and that link Japan with Malacca Strait and South China Sea. So since 2003, as Professor Kiba was mentioning, we have seen a new development in Japan's foreign policy assistance, right, in the form of official security assistance, directly designed for providing non-lethal weapons and capacity buildings to militaries and security forces to Southeast Asian nations, or Pacific nations, or even South Asia. Bangladesh received that. OSA is a key component, right, of Japan's 2022 national security strategy, marking the shift toward more proactive security diplomacy. Recipient countries in Southeast Asia includes, for example, like Philippines, Malaysia, even Thailand, and Vietnam. And Cambodia is in the list to come. So the question is whether this election victory will result in double down Japan's security role in Southeast Asia in the future, and how would Japan's increasing role in this area impact Southeast Asia nations? Will that be helpful for providing more options in your, hedging strategy, kind of expertise to evaluate this, or should Southeast Asia be cautious, about Japan's expanding security role, similar to what Beijing's positions, are trying to warn the Japanese to contain its role now in this area. So, Professor Quick, is your round.
ขอบคุณครับ Mr. Moderator, Professor Pongpisut, my friend Paul, and also my young brother. Good morning, everybody. สวัสดีครับ Ohayo gozaimasu to everyone. Let me begin by thanking the organizers, ICES Thailand, for having me here. And I would also like to thank Japan Foundation. I know Masuki-san, Kun Ponsiri, and also colleagues, representative from Japan Foundation are here. I would like to thank them because of this is actually the final month of my 6-month Japan Foundation Southeast Asia Program fellowship in Kyoto, in Kyoto. So I'm very grateful to have this opportunity to quote-unquote give back and also celebrate my Japan Foundation fellowship in Bangkok, taking part in Paul, my young brother's event. And that's having after, before the fellowship, I actually took part in a similar event in Thammasat. My big brother, Kitty, was co-hosting together with Japanese embassy in Bangkok. So I'm grateful to have such a coincidence to kind of celebrate and, as I said, reciprocate, give back what I have been learning throughout my 6-month fellowship. With that, let me do my job as the last panelist for this exciting panel. As you could see, Kiba-san and Kun Hiti and also Kun Tiwin, they are all experts on Japan. I'm not. So let me begin by emphasizing that I'm the black sheep in whichever group that we talk about. As the only non-specialist on Japan talking about Japan foreign policy and also Japan Southeast Asia. My perspective would be very much as a student of international relations. So instead of talking about Japan, which I'm not qualified, I thought I would talk about responses to Japan. How small and medium-sized countries in Southeast Asia or ASEAN region, 10 and then now 11, are looking into what is going on. Not so much about Japan's domestic politics, but Japan's evolving foreign policy, external policy, security policy, focusing on OSA, official security assistance. So to do that, I would say that we have only 10-15 minutes. I've already used up 1 minute. And as you could see from the other 3 fellows, panelists, each country's external policy is very complex, right? And let alone a region as complex and diverse as Southeast Asia, 10, 11 countries, where diversity within and across the boundaries is the key determinant. So impossible to talk about 11 countries. With the time that I have, I thought I would talk about only 3 points, 3 A's that I think will help us understand the common denominators, but also parallel themes and differences across how 10, 11 ASEAN countries look at Japan and growing Japan's profile and activism in the form of OSA, but there are also many other related initiatives that we could see will be coming up from Prime Minister Takaichi's policy in the coming years. So the 3 A's would be a framework that I think will help, not just for today's purposes, but I think this 3A framework will also help us to understand, manage our expectations. when or if Tokyo come up with some initiative, let's use the 3A framework to know that what would be the likely responses from not just Bangkok, but Hanoi, Jakarta, Kuala Lumpur, so on and so forth. Don't get too excited, but don't get too upset if you are seeing and hearing and reading about some responses from the region about Japan's policy and policy initiative, right? 3A. First A is about alignment. Alignment is a word that I thought capture a lot of dynamics that are going on. Before the current era, I would say that before 5 years ago, most scholars, officials, and all that would use the word partnership to describe Japan-Southeast Asia relations. Today, I dare to say, as a student of IR, I think alignment and together with partnership would be the relevant word. And alignment in the strict sense of the word. I know this is like perhaps too abstract and conceptual and all that, but trust me, this is relevant not just for academic reason. It's relevant for policy or for general interest, because that one or two words will help us to understand the interesting strength, but also weaknesses and limitations that we are going to observe. So partnership, of course, is about cooperation. But you agree, cooperation can be one-off or continuing, right? So partnership implies that it's cooperation that will regularize and continues, or to use the IR term, institutionalize, right? Not one-off, right? But continuing. Partnership is continuing, regularized cooperation. Alignment is the highest form of partnership. Sorry, not alliance. I'm too quick to go into the second A, right? But alignment, right? Alignment is the highest form of partnership in the sense that it is not just institutionalized, but it actually it's also more regularized in many sense. So I would characterize alignment, the keyword to understand Japan Southeast Asia, as a partnership with 3 C's, right? Convergence of interests. Your interest is my interest, or maritime security in South China Sea, through America, so on and so forth. Indo-Pacific or no Indo-Pacific, your interest of Japan is also interest of Southeast Asia, especially maritime Southeast Asia, right? Convergence of interest underpin the growing Japan-Southeast Asia alliance. Before, during, and after OSA, I would dare to say, right? But having convergence is not enough. Second and third C are equally important to know the limits and promises of a Japan-Southeast Asia alliance. Second C is about consultation. Does the convergence of interests led governments of the days, either in Tokyo and vis-a-vis the ASEAN capitals, to actually sit down like you guys are sitting down, having some institutionalized dialogue cooperation, 2+2, so on and so on, right? Called consultation. Are we going to institutionalize that convergence of interest into some consultation? And then thirdly, more importantly, all alignments must not just involving convergence of interest, or also institutionalization of consultation, but I would say the third C, very critical. It's about compatibility, enhancement, coordination, right? Alignments involve some coordination, meaning that on the basis of convergence and also a consultation, are you going to coordinate? If Kitty talked about contingency, right? When something happens, you don't want that to happen, but you know it might happen. Maybe Taiwan contingency or South China Sea contingency or whatever. When bad things happen, competition escalate into a conflict or armed forces and also a clash, are you ready for either plan B or convergence in measures, right? So all alignments should fit very well into compatibility, enhancement, coordination, yeah? So all alignments would serve that purposes. So you could see that at the moment, Japan and Southeast Asia, not with all 10 and 11 ASEAN countries, right? But with some countries. You are already seeing not just cooperation, not just partnership, but some alignments are emerging in one way or another, right? So who are those, right? I think the recipient countries or partners of OSA. It's a good list of countries where you can say that some form of alignments are emerging between Japan and Southeast Asian countries. That is just a fact. Before Takaichi, but I think will happen more during Takaichi's times, right? And beyond, right? So I think I'm very clear about alignments is the keyword to understand the evolving and emerging Japan-Southeast Asia as an interstate cooperation and interstate partnership in our time. It will not go away anytime soon. However, second A would also be very helpful to so that you won't misinterpret, you won't get too excited. When we say yes to some of the initiative, Philippines say yes to Japan's OSA, right? Philippines' response is that the more the merrier, no limits. Whatever you're going to declare, we are alliance or not, or de facto alignment, doesn't matter. But Kitty already mentioned that Thailand is very cautious, right? Despite the long-standing cooperation between Japan and Thailand, right? Thailand is cautious in responding to Japan's OSA. It's a good thing, right? Will help capacity building and so on and so forth. And let me emphasize and add one more example. Thailand is not alone. The interesting case is actually Vietnam. Vietnam, you would assume that if a Philippine, a claimant country, feel threatened by China's assertive action over South China Sea, you would have expected Vietnam to jump on this deal, right? But instead, you are seeing a very, I would say, cautious, low profile and gradual reaction, right? It took Hanoi some time and under different political leadership in Hanoi to respond to Japan's OSA, right? So much so that some Japanese friends are telling me that they missed the first round. They missed the first round, right? Already offered, but nothing happened. Missed the first round. Finally, last April, Vietnam came out with come up with a statement. But that statement is clearly a positive signaling, but again, it's a conditional, very cautious and measured. I think the reason is very similar to what Kitty was mentioned about in the case of Thailand, right? Not to alienate China. However, if you begin to think that you interpret all these countries not to alienate China as we, the smaller country, are too afraid of China or we want China's money at the expense of other things, wait a minute, you have to think again. It's more complex than that. I would highlight later on. But to cut the long story short, I think this is a time to emphasize about why the second A alliance is relevant to understand what to expect for Japan, Southeast Asia, Australia, Southeast Asia, US, Southeast Asia, you name it, right? Alliance is the highest form of alignment. Alliance, I already made clear distinction between partnership and alignment, right? So alliance is the highest form of alignment in the sense that it is an alignment without mutual defense commitment, 3 words, right? Mutual defense commitment might sound too abstract to IR, but actually it's very simple. It means that you have my words, your security is my security, and vice versa is true. In the real sense, it means that if I'm going to war, I expect you to be with us, right? So Takaichi is just mentioning something that to be expected, right? And for your own proximity reason, of course, Taiwan's contingency is going to be Japan's contingency, so on and so forth, right? Takaichi just mentioned something that we already knew is going to happen. And it's not just about Japan-US alliance, mutual defense commitment. But for your own reason, you will also have that, right? But Southeast Asia's perspective is that we want alignments, we want more and stronger alignment, but bottom line, no alliance. Alignment without alliance is what Southeast Asia, with the exception of Philippines, under the current President Bongbong, right? Post Bongbong, if there is a Duterte 2.0 in Manila, you might see that Philippines, even in the case of Philippines, might go through some recalibration of alignment without alliance when it comes to these kind of things. Why is that? And the word alliance, you can result into many other typologies, right? Southeast Asia, 10, 11 ASEAN countries, you could say that Philippines at the moment is alliance first country. Use alliance as the cornerstone of external policy and so on and so forth. But the rest of Southeast Asia, including even claimant countries like Vietnam, Malaysia, and also Brunei, and the big brother Indonesia, so on and so forth, we are alliance allergic. We are not alliance first. So when you offer us something, don't assume or hope that we are going to react the same way that alliance first country like Philippines are going to tell you. You are going to be disappointed. I already mentioned Vietnam's very cautious reaction. Why is that? Alliance allergy. And we are alliance allergic meaning that it's not about anti, right? Allergy is not about anti. Anti means that you are anti, right? You won't go for it, right? Allergy means that I know there are some benefits, tasty for that kind of food or arrangement, but I'm allergic. If I have it, I'm going to have a lot of negative reaction. ASEAN countries, including Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia, so on and so forth, we are alliance allergy in the sense that we want to strengthen alignment with Japan and many others. But if the intention is to form alliance targeting at one country, the answer, whoever leaders in the capital will say that, count me out. We will not go into that. But alignment, yes, the more the merrier, but not alliance. That will lead me to the third A and also my final point of ambivalence. Ambivalence means what? Some positive and negative or cautious. Ambivalent is the key word to understand. Whether you are academic, analyst, and also official, you need to understand that smaller countries in Southeast Asia, and I would say Global South, we are ambivalent about almost everything. So nothing personal. It's not just about Japan or about Takaichi or about anyone, right? Southeast Asia countries, Global South countries, alliance allergic countries' perspective about big powers, major powers, superpower or second-tier powers will always be ambivalent. Meaning that we are not going to see you as angel, we are not going to see you as devil. We thought that you are both helping hands, but also harming hands. Trump 2.0 only reminds everybody that a superpower who is benign for 70, 80 years can also harm you in one way or another. So smaller countries, when we welcome opportunities from OSA, we also understand that there are some possible consequences that might entrap us. So just now I mentioned that when Thailand and Vietnam are very cautious about Japan's OSA, we see that as positive opportunities, but we won't take this as either or, to join or not to join, to reject or not to reject, but it's a spectrum. So I think eventually Vietnam and other countries will do what Philippines has been doing. Indonesia and Malaysia, very interesting, very cautious and alliance allergic as well. But in reality, the last 2-3 years, you do see that there are more and more cooperation, partnerships, and saying yes and yes to Japan's offering or OSA. There are some notes. However, let's see this as alignments rather than alliance. Then I think we can push the envelope to have more cooperation that will help not just bilaterally between Japan and individual Southeastern countries, but also will help regional stability, so on and so forth. And I think with that, maybe I should stop here, and I hope I have provoked enough for your possible questions. And the survival as an IR student for panelists like this is that I love difficult questions, so please do not be shy. And I will try my very best to answer. And the good thing about panel like this is that if I can't answer, I'm going to entrap. Saya, Kitty, and also my new friend T-Win, and perhaps even the moderator. Right? Thank you very much. Kokung Kap and arigato gozaimasu. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sheng Shui. That was brilliant, and yeah, I learned from him a lot about these, using 3 alphabet to conceptualize my talk in other, occasions. But anyway, we don't have that much time, so I'll skip the second part that I'm going to ask you to do in the beginning, and probably jump into Q&A. If anyone wants to ask, raise your hand and tell your identity, and please, this gentleman, and then.
Hi, I am Germany language student from Bangkok University. So my question is for Dr. Kitty and Dr. Tewin. As Thailand and Germany have many collaboration in academic and economic way. So if we look at the Thailand and Japanese relation, so if we want to bring Japan back to Thailand radar, which focal point can be a key priority and feasibility to develop collaboration between Thailand and Japanese? Thank you. Danke.
I think the problem is about Thailand. Thailand has been preoccupied with domestic politics for too long, and we do not look at international affairs in a straightforward manner. It tends to be either the US or China. It reflects the polarization of domestic politics in Thailand. Conservatives tend to pro-China, while liberal or progressive tend to pro-American. And conservative always argue that American try to brainwash our youth by supporting the national endowment of democracy and funding that kind of thing, promote democratic idea to destroy Thai core institution and so on. I think that is the key agenda in Thailand, that we should move beyond polarization, but I don't think it's going to happen soon. That one thing. Another thing is on Japan-Thailand relation. I think we should strengthen our relationship in many ways. In fact, we should be well aware that Japan has contributed tremendously to our economic development since the late 1980s. Thailand and other countries in ASEAN would not be so developed like this without Japanese investment and Japanese contribution in many ways. So we should be aware of that and try to look at international affairs in a more neutral way. What country can be contributive or useful for Thailand? Not just look at America, China, and so on. We should look at other major powers, the EU as well, Canada, I think very interesting, Australia and ASEAN as well. And Japan also need to develop more self-confidence. I think Japan has lost some confidence in engaging with Southeast Asian country in the past 2 decades or so, because Japan economy has been stagnated and China seems to be increasing influence in many ways. We have to try both ways, domestic politics, domestic sentiment in Thailand, Thailand awareness on Japan importance, and also Japan also should try to cultivate more ties with Thailand. And the media, I think media should help to publicize this fact as well. I think it's a fact, not just a perceptions. Thank you.
Okay, for me to expand from Professor Kitty answer about Thai and Japanese relation, I think in the age of uncertainty, especially the age that we cannot really rely fully on the great powers like the US and China, I think we should try to diversify our source of interest and also source of interdependency. And I think Japan is a best candidate in this region as a middle power that can, balance against US and China in terms of its role in the region. So I think in this kind of era, perhaps maybe Thailand should focus more to cultivate allies beyond, as Professor Kitty said, beyond the US and China, and also looking at the middle powers in the region, whether Japan, Australia, or other countries that try to also protect the international rule of law. I think that will be a good policy option for Thailand at this time. We can look at Japan as maybe I can use the term that Professor Cheng Chi is specialized, hedging, using Japan as a hedging force in the region so that we don't have to stick to China and the US that tend to put pressure on many countries, especially small countries in the world nowadays. So I think, but I agree with Professor Kitty that not an easy way that Japan can, that Thailand can do because of our, policy tradition, something like that, and it may need, and the government may need to educate Thai public about the need or the importance in, put importance to strategic thinking about what Thailand should do in this age of uncertainty.
Juncture, you haven't said any word of hedging this time? You try to say hedging, but not hedging.
Yeah, yes, exactly. So Paul has been a long-time friend that he knew my trick, right? My trick these days is to talk about hedging without using the word hedging. Kun Kasit is here, right? So we had a very short conversation just now about hedging. And I was kind of like admitted to him that hedging today is one of the most, I would say, one of the most commonly used words, but also one of the most commonly misunderstood words. Many see hedging negatively, right? Negatively, thinking that hedging is about speculative, indecisive, and naive, so on and so forth, right? But I beg to disagree because of during my, I would say by now, about almost 20 years journey, I first started to study about hedging when I was a student in Washington, D.C. So far, I have been kind of like trying to understand about hedging, not in IR terms, but actually hedging as human behavior. So I went to, I've spent some time to study how different disciplines, other than political science, I know we are in a Chula political science department. Without political science, beyond political science, how a human, like in different sectors, you might say that it's about financial terms, right? My research indicates that actually financial investors is not the first hedgers. The first hedgers are actually in other discipline, other human sector. It's about commodity traders, farmers. There are earliest hedgers. If you talk to a linguist, right, linguistics, and linguist expert will tell you that they have a term called academic hedging. All of us here, I dare to say, whether you're a student, academic, or analyst, we are all hedgers. Why is that? Because of you might be wrong. Your reputation stake is at stake, right? So you will say things like, you make a position, you will say, having said that, right? That's academic hedging. So IR is that we want the benefits from what OSA has to offer. We want what Australia has to offer. We want all middle powers with emerging activism has to offer. We would embrace, respond accordingly based on our threat perception. However, we would not go so far of putting all eggs in one basket. That is the hedging mindset and all that. Is that wrong? Is that sinful? No, it's not wrong. It's not sinful. Why is that? International relations, whether you study in Bangkok or Boston or wherever, right? You know that international relations, especially if you're non-big powers, is about helping hands and harming hands. Uncertainty is something that, Kun Tiwin and many others are talking about. Uncertainty is a time, is the theme of our time, right? Trump 2.0, someone with one sentence. Uncertainty is the only certainty. Where you're not uncertain who can help you, who can harm you, and you know more often than not, they harm you and help you in many ways, even unintentionally, how not to hedge. So Southeast Asia are doing something that what Latin Americans, Middle East, so on and so forth, we are hedging. But last point is that hedging will remain as policy without pronouncement. And policy without pronouncement in the sense that you will not hear hedgers saying, telling the whole world, hey, I'm hedging, right? No, of course, just do it, right? Just do it because of hedging is about to reduce risk. When you are saying, telling the whole world that we are hedging, you are just telling everybody that you don't trust anybody. That would increase the risk rather than reduce risk, right? So hedging, policy without pronouncement. You are judged from their actions and the survival logic. That is a keyword.
Thank you.
Kasit Pirom, I'm a fellow at ISIS. Japan is the only country in the world that faces three challenges forthcoming from Russia, China, and North Korea. And I think that's very understandable for Japan to wake up to the reality of increasing the self-defense capacity. So my question to all the panelists, is that the end of the pacifist era of Japan? And in relation to that, the existence of Quads, AUKUS, various trilateral cooperation with the US and Japan at the core, would that is a strong message for China to think twice now that its assertiveness and unilateral actions and so on in both the South China and East China Sea and so on can no longer go forward. They cannot keep on bullying and coercing the rest of the Western Pacific countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That is true. That I also believe that the pacifist, so-called the pacifist kind of ideology, is declining because of the current threat in the neighboring country, and particularly after 2022. As Kishida mentioned, that the Ukraine today, East Asia tomorrow. So that's the one. But I also like to emphasize that the pacifist is getting more centric. But at the same time, the hawkish attitude, such as Takaichi, is also getting closer to the centric. Because in the past, the reason why Abe and the other LDP leaders has to go to Yasukuni Shrine is to get the vote from the very conservative population of Japan. But in the past decade, particularly after the Abe administration, our self-defense forces is getting normal, and even without amending the constitution, our forces can do a lot of things, including the arms export. So it means that the conservatives are getting more satisfied. So the core of the hawkish attitude of Abe was a frustration among the self-defense forces service member, and also the self-defense forces supporters, that they are not socially recognized. They are not legally recognized in the Japanese society. But that is already normalized. So that means the Takaichi doesn't need to go to Yasukuni anymore because she already gains the public support, and in that process, I guess the Abe, Kishida, and even Ishiba, who was very non-LDP kind of politician, normalize the society, the relationship between the society and the Japan Self-Defense Forces by honoring the service members. So honoring the self-defense forces, is not really to go to the Yasukuni Shrine, just to show the respect. So Abe was the first one who said, "Thank you for your service" in front of the JSDF members. And then the other prime minister also followed that path. The popularity, the base of the popularity of the defense minister Koizumi is also like that. He always respects the service members, which is really a normal country. So we are getting to the normal country. So that's why even the popular, even the civilians, the ordinary citizens, we are gradually learning how to respect our service members. And that's why the hawkish politicians, they don't need to go to Yasukuni Shrine. They don't need to justify the war anymore because we are already normalized.
Can I have like 5 minutes for this answer? Because it's like I prepare something like this for the second round, and I think it's related to what Professor just asked. So in terms of security strategy, Japan is in the state of transition, and the rise of Takaichi marks a turning point 10 years since Japan passed the national security legislation in 2015 to upgrade SDF roles, including the acceptance of the right of collective self-defense. The question is what Japan is aspiring to be in terms of security doctrine: a pacifist nation as it has been, a normal country, or a militaristic country. In terms of a normal country, it means Japan continues to increasingly easing restrictions on SDF. But in fact, nowadays, even with the peace constitution remain in place, SDF roles have become very flexible. Japan looks more and more like a normal country already. Japan may want to make SDF more like a normal military force by revising Constitution Article 9, while it has the potential to do so with the recent election result. Together with the condition that more parties and people in Japan are subscribing to the rightist view and agenda, is militarism also an option? I think structurally maybe it's impossible with the power relativity in Asia right now, because China becomes a great power in this region. But it is what China tries to portray Japan nowadays, pointing to the change in Japan's security posture. This is to nourish nationalism among its general public and also to raise skepticism in the international community about Japan's intention. Instead of regarding these three identities, pacifism, normal country, and militarism as dilemmas or choices, I like to argue that Japan should look at this as the way to balance against these identities. How to balance against this? Accumulating strength and preparing for war is important in terms of maintaining deterrent strategy, as I argued before, or the so-called doctrine of peace through strength. So a militaristic nation nowadays is important, in my opinion. But again, the element of post-war peace and an anti-war purpose should be maintained as the reassurance aspect of defense policy. Also to offset China's propaganda to cast Japan in the militaristic threatening image. Today, while SDF can flexibly engage in wider range of missions and operations, constitutional change may not be necessary anymore. And it can serve as showing Japan's limit as a reminder and guarantor that Japan has changed for a peaceful cause rather than a threatening factor in Asia. That is to ensure status quo and contain any attempt to change the rule-based order in this region. While it can act more like a normal state, the ideal of peace can reassure both allies, China and other small states, from fearing that Japan itself will become too militaristic and threaten the status quo in Asia.
Hello, my name is Prabhakar, Rajamangala University of Technology, Bangkok. I have a question to the earlier response from Professor Kitty and Dr. Tiwan to the question on Japan and Southeast Asia. When you responded, you said other middle powers. You mentioned Japan, you mentioned Australia, but you didn't hear South Korea. So are you not taking South Korea as a potential middle power playing a role in Southeast Asia? That's my question. Because there's a lot of discourse. South Korea want to be acting as a middle power, playing an active role. Of course, it does not have the same capacity like Japan, but not hearing it mention Australia, in my case, in my understanding, Australia is further away than South Korea. So why not mention South Korea?
Well, actually, I mentioned a bit on Korea. But 2 points here. First, I'm just afraid that South Korea and Japan and the US would form a kind of trilateral or minilateralism under the US camp to against
South
China.
Korea, Japan also fighting as well, like with the Prime Minister statement about the island, which is disputed between South Korea and Japan. So they also generated a dispute with South Korea, claiming...
It's always the problem.
No, it's an ongoing problem. It's not sorted. But when she made a similar statement, hawkish statement about the island belongs to Japan and not South Korea, South Korean government jumped out and said, hey, wait a moment, what you're talking? So basically, yes, they're within the alignment, South Korea, Japan, America, but they also have their own historical dispute, and it's ongoing.
Definitely. But my point is that under the US auspices, Korea and Japan have to work more closely because the NSS, regional handoff, the regional security must be burdened among countries in the regions. So that is the point. The second point is that I think Korea they tend to be preoccupied with the Korean Peninsula. They do not want to act outside the Korean Peninsula, for one thing.
Sorry for interrupting, but they also formulated a policy to go south. South Korea made some statements. We want to be more active.
You can disagree with me, but let listen me until the end, okay? And then you can argue. Otherwise, I cannot put my rationale on my argument, okay? I think Korea, what they like, first they preoccupy with their North Korea problems. And outside, they want investment. They want to sell arms. They want to sell weapons. That's their interest. I don't think Korea was trying to involve itself in South China Sea, in other security, even Taiwan, I don't think so. But unless the US pressure them so strong, that is my 2 points. You can disagree, but let me finish first. Okay, I finish now.
Sheng Shui, you want to add?
Yeah, very quick one. I'm no expert on Japan. I'm no expert on Korea. But before my 6-month fellowship in Kyoto, I spent 3 months in Seoul. And I learned as a student of IR about some of these issues that is in your dialogue. And I love all the points. So I would offer a few points about how I see the promises and also or potentials of limits of Korea, South Korea as a middle power in Trump 2.0. So I think I generally agree with Kitty that for Korea, whether it's the President Yi or some other leaders, the main preoccupation will always be a Korean Peninsula, and then DPRK is not in the news these days in Bangkok or elsewhere. But I can tell you that, of course, in Seoul, that's still a big issue. However, I also see some evolving policy from South Korea as a country, whether you call it middle power or not. President Moon already have this new southern policy. Under Yuen, they have Indo-Pacific, but the linkages, emphasis about beyond Northeast Asia, beyond the Korean Peninsula is already emerging, right? And you could see that, the linkages, Korea, Japan, very important. Japan, Southeast Asia, were important. Whether or not it's the new southern policy, 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, you know that Korea, in order to diversify beyond the big powers and the immediate neighborhood, they are seeing more and more opportunities. Arms deal, defense industry is a big thing. It's a converging elements as well, but I think there are also many more. Third and final point, I would say that something that we mentioned earlier on, but we didn't get a chance to talk about, and I would think that is relevant for the purposes of this audience and also this seminar, is something that we call as IP4, right? Indo-Pacific 4, that includes Japan, South Korea, Australia, and New Zealand, right? You mentioned about Australia, not so distant, but this is not how Southeast Asia, especially maritime Southeast Asia, see, right? We want countries from Northeast Asia, right? Also European countries, but Australia's here, right? Australia and also New Zealand, they are important. They have always been there, and we want more. But again, the 3A framework that I mentioned is equally relevant, right? We want alignments, no alliance, and we will always be ambivalent. And Japan, South Korea, Australia, and others will very much fit into this framework, right? You put President Yi's shoes, put yourself in President Yi's shoes, right? When Trump visited, right, he treated him as a king. Lots of, good news, great news, and all that. Then that was helping hands, right? Trying to help more. But weeks later, they declare, Washington, D.C. declare some more greater, higher kind of tariff. So if you put yourself in President Yi's shoes, you know that helping hands, harming hands, blurring line these days. Welcome to 21st century IR. So I think we are all in the right place to study international relations, right? You might not be interested in geopolitics uncertainty, but geopolitics uncertainty is interested in you.
So do you have any comment?
Just to remind ourselves that Thailand was designated as the major non-NATO ally. At the same time, there is the continued existence of the CETO Treaty. So the alliance relationship between the United States, Thailand and the Philippines, Australia and New Zealand is there, but somewhat forgotten. That's the first point. Second, if South Korea were to be more active, it should remind itself and Thailand, the Philippines, Australia, New Zealand, that we did send military contingents to participate in the Korean War. So it's something quite positive in that sense to enhance the relationship and try to work on peace and security together. I think sometimes we forget about history. The last point is that Their Majesty, the King and Queen of Thailand, went on an official visit to Beijing a few months ago to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the diplomatic relationship between the Kingdom of Thailand and the Communist government of China. At the same time, I think not long ago, I believe the commander of the Pacific Fleet of the United States was in town. But the missing element for the past few years, I think, has been the lack of high-level bilateral consultation between Japan and Thailand. The last serious consultation and negotiation was on the negotiation on the Thailand-Japan white paper on the economic relations restructuring, whereby we did ask Japan to go for the export-led industry and to end the import substitutes industry. That was in the early 1980s. Then we did negotiate a bit on the Thailand-Japan FTA, but that did not go to the fundamental restructuring and so on. It's about time that we restart the negotiation, but the point is that Thailand is no longer on the front line state. In the communist, I think the Cold War era, the frontline state are Taiwan, Vietnam, the Philippines, and even Malaysia. So I believe from the Japanese point of view, we are not here and there. We are no longer important from the Japanese eyes. So it remains on the Thai side, the new government, to, I think, reset itself and initiate the negotiation with Japan. We cannot wait for Japan to come. We have to go to Tokyo. Thank you.
Thank you, so we are running out of time. Probably last question from me to make the general observations of the structural change at this time. How can we make the observations of the growing popularities of the conservative parties, right-wing movement, or populist trends around the world? You can see the elections in recent times, Japan, US, Thailand, and other countries in Europe, right? I mean, the right-wing and the conservative parties getting more popularity. So where are the world leading to from today onward, probably in the next 10 years? What are we going to see in the future? And what should we prepare for?
Very quickly, I thought this is an excellent and tough question, right? Structural change and all that. And given the context and also the timing, as we talk, some of us knew that the Munich Security Conference is actually happening. And Kun Kasi mentioned about NATO and so on and so forth. And we knew that that's exactly an indicator or evidence of structural change, right? Structural change in the plain language in this context is that used to be the sources of harming hands and helping hands are very clear. You know who can you count on, and you would adjust your policy accordingly. Today, European countries, NATO members, they knew that the largest helping hands today, it's potential or actual emerging harming hands. And you could see the mood in European countries, NATO countries especially, not to mention about things that Kitty mentioned earlier on Greenland, right? So you could see that that was a structural change that shocked all European leaders. And it's not going to end in 2026 and so on. It's going to coming here and there. However, in Southeast Asia, we would add that we already experienced the structural change before many of us were born, right? Late 1960s, when East or West policy announced, when US Nixon doctrine was announced, many of us who put all eggs in the Western basket for the Alliance First policy, we have to change and diversify and all that, right? So today you are seeing a lot of this reaction to the structural change. Structural change in the sense that you don't want that to happen, but also you know that it's beyond you. They are top down and they will affect you. For survival reason, you have to diversify, you need to hedge in one way or another. Southeast Asian countries have been hedging since that moment, 1970s onwards. I would say that with the current structural change that are going on, cross transatlantic, you are seeing European countries and doing more and more. Canadian Prime Minister make a speech that is being quoted and all that. You are seeing that as a response to a core member of NATO is also trying to diversify in one way or another. And things are going to be along that spectrum, not either or. It's not about whether to collaborate or not to collaborate, but how to collaborate, to what extent. Convergence of interest, coordination, consultation would be a core to understand the responses about the structural change that Paul talked about.
Yeah, okay, let me briefly explain the background of our rise of anti-foreignism in Japan. You may know some certain, the rise of the new parties, not in the latest election, but in the last year, in the upper house election, the very anti-foreignism kind of party, the new party with an orange logo rise up. So the background, I think there are 4 reasons why it is rising in Japan. So first one is over-tourism. The yen is weak, and there are so many tourists. I'm from Kyoto, and that's why I criticized Nara earlier. So my hometown is full of foreigners, and then everybody complains that, no, we love foreigners, but it's just a matter of our daily life. Okay? The second one is the bad economy in Japan, and then it's very difficult for Japanese these days to travel to Europe and the US. And according to the survey, only 24% of the Japanese hold a passport. So we don't go abroad, and we see so many foreigners buying a lot in Japan. And then like something like in Shuai, we just envy the foreigners. Number 3 is it's more on the problem of our government. Lack of accountability on migration policy, because our government does not openly say that welcome migrants, but there are so many workers, the foreign workers. So what the government would like to say? What's the future? What's the strategy of accepting the foreign workers? So that's more on the accountability problem of our government, and I think the Takaichi, the new Takaichi administration will fix that idea of to fix the policy and have more clear message to the public. And number 4 is the SNS, social media and all the scapegoating. Now everybody is scapegoating what is bad in Japan through the fake news. And then they say that the foreigners do not follow the rule, foreigners are bad, and they are not polite, they do not respect our religions, etc. So those are the things. But so there are there are a lot of reasons. So we have to clarify what are the core reasons of those kind of rise of anti-foreignism, and but if the citizens get proper information and the evidence-based information, probably they can change the idea. So providing the right information is very important. So before, the decade ago, our anti-foreignism all went to China and South Koreans. But nowadays, the Japanese people under 50 years old, they love China. They love South Korea. Nobody criticizes South Koreans, right? So they change because the South Koreans are not harmful, right? So that's that kind of things. And then so if you carefully examine the evidence, what kind of foreigners and what kind of crimes caused by the foreigners are really bad, and then what kind of policy can fix those ideas. So that kind of proper information sharing is very important.
I think I would like to focus on the rise of popularism, conservatism in Japan and impact on Southeast Asia. I think we need to look at three dimensions. The first domain is security dimension. I think Japan would definitely add up more posture on defense, enhancing more capability, enhancing more cooperation, collaboration with Southeast Asia, particularly the Philippines, the country that facing threat. And that can be somehow opportunity for other countries as well in gaining some capacity building from Japan in maritime security, on non-traditional security. And second domain, on economic domain, I think that is still good and normal for Japan. Japan still would like to cultivate, they would like to collaborate with China, Southeast Asia in terms of investment, trade, and so on. That nothing much change in this domain. And the third domain is socio-cultural domain. The anti-foreigner sentiments, I think that can be a bit problematic. We need to look at that dimension as well. Otherwise, it can have spill over into economic dimensions. And just one comment on Ambassador Kasit, Minister Kasit on alliance. I think alliance is based on treaty, right? Treaty alliance. You can compare it with marriage certificate. As long as you live with your spouse, maybe nothing happened, nothing exciting. So marriage certificate does not have that much meaning. So in the case of Thailand and US, it seems that we do not have the same threat perception. The threat perception that not excite us. But for the Philippines, threat, South China Sea excite Philippines. So thank you.
Just a short remark about the emerging structure of international politics. I think that the new political climate is forming, and this is the result of the competition or tension between realist approach that many countries are adopting and also a liberalist approach that many countries try to protect. So with the realist approach, I mean more and more countries will concern about self-egoistic interest and also the rise of nationalism or xenophobic, anti-foreigner, something like that, is part of this kind of trend. At the same time, we see that many countries still believe that liberal world order, also the rule of law at the international level, is very important for their national interest. So I think these two approaches, realist and liberalist, will, just compete with each other from now on. And we also see this sign happen already. And what the country can do to cope with this kind of situation, I think perhaps hedging, as Professor Cheng Chui has said, and maybe they become more self-help. But hopefully, I think that countries that still believe in liberal world order should form like third pillar to balance against, maybe soft balance against the US and China that tend to be more abusive from now on. So I think to form the third pillar with as many countries as possible to signal to the superpower that we need to protect or we need to maintain this current international order is very important.
Okay, thank you very much. So it comes to an end. So thank you very much to our speakers. Please give a big round of applause to them. And thank you everyone for coming here in the morning. And we're gonna have other activities in the following month. So please follow our Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitters. So we all expand to all the platforms. So thank you very much, and have a good Valentine's tomorrow. Thank you.